Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see here on our channel or any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Launched in 2011, this is the Rolex Oyster Perpetual Explorer II, known as the Polar Dial. This is the 216570 42 millimeters in Rolex's highly anti-corrosive 904L Oyster steel. This is a watch that is big, broad, beautiful, and uncommon. In a lot of regards, it's the alternative to the common GMT, Submariner, or Daytona. So this is a big watch, make no mistake. At 42 millimeters, it has an impressive wrist presence. Though it's only about as thick as a Daytona at 12.4 millimeters thick. From lug to lug, it measures 50 millimeters, and from solid end link to solid end link, it's an impressive 53.5 millimeters across the wrist. The spacing between the lugs, should you wish to put it on a strap, and it actually looks great on straps, it's 21 millimeters between the horns. Throw it on my wrist, 16 centimeters in circumference. You can see this is a lot of Rolex. It's not thick, and you can see that from the cuff shot, but from overhead, you begin to get a sense that it's crowding to the edge of my wrist, which is why I wouldn't recommend this watch for a wrist smaller than 15 centimeters circumference. You can also see in this down the barrel shot that I'm right on the limit here. I think I've got a little bit of clearance, so that's why I'm saying 15 centimeter circumference wrists or larger. Any smaller than that, you're going to want to go with the previous 40 millimeter reference of this watch. Taking a look at the bracelet, you can see it's understated. Satin finish on the tops of the Rolex 3-link Oyster bracelet. It's also made of 904L steel. If you're wondering what that means, it just means it's more anti-corrosive than the standard industry 316L. So, for example, if you come in contact with salt, you don't need to rinse this. Polished outboard flanks of the links, removable links fixed by screws. You have plenty of adjustability built in by removing screws. You can see that the clasp, which is polished on its flanks, satin across its top, has a lift lock system with a beak and a hook internally. There's a channel down the center of the clasp, which is media blasted. The rest is polished. You watch it latch once and then again with the clamshell. There's a little curve so you can dig your nail in underneath the 5-point coronet and pop this open. There's also the Rolex 5mm Easy Link system. It's the equivalent of adding or removing one sizable link, about 5 millimeters, so you can change on the fly without a tool. Now, if you want to change a little bit more, there are divots drilled, and I'll try to capture this, but there are divots drilled inside the clasp. You can really see them from this angle. The divots feature little tracks leading into the divot, so it's easier to use your strap tool to re-anchor the bracelet inside the clasp if you want a third way, along with Easy Link and removable links to size this watch. Taking a look at the flank, this is the super case, although it doesn't strike you as such. Because it's so broad, the squared off ends of the lugs don't quite look as blockish as they do on the GMTs, the Sea Dwellers, and the subs. This actually looks decently proportioned and tapered, which actually puts it in line with the now 41 millimeter Rolex Submariner, as the lug profile is a bit more elegant than the other super cases. You've got a twin lock crown, screw down, 100 meter water resistance. The case flanks, as with the other super cases, are sheer and of high polish. The bezel has a polished lip, but if you look at its top, it has a radial grain that's laid down with a lapping machine. This emanates from an imaginary center point over the hands. This is both characteristic of 1970s watches and a literal nod to the original 1971 Explorer II, a watch designed for cave explorers. It featured the same bezel lapping grain. So on the dial, this is truly white. This is called the Polar Dial, and with good reason. Whereas many Rolex white dials are actually a satin silver, this is truly white like chalk, like the cliffs of Dover. The indices are black, the print is black, the hands, with the exception of the nostalgic orange arrow, are all black varnished, and then you have a orange Explorer II script up at 12 o'clock. The orange arrow, of course, another nod to the first generation 1655 Explorer II. Unlike that watch, this watch is a true dual time, which means you have the ability to set that local hour hand independently. The second hand, which makes a 24-hour sweep, and you have a 24-hour scale on the bezel. That other time zone is literally a second time zone, not just an AM, PM for local time. The watch also features hacking or stop seconds, and once you hack and stop the movement, then everything moves in sync. You'll note the orange hand moves at half the speed of the local hour hand. Inside the case, a movement similar to the 3186, but built for this case size. It's called the 3187, and it's only found in this reference. It has Rolex's proprietary Paraflex shock protection springs, in addition to some component sizing differences from the 3186, but fundamentally it's a modern Rolex caliber of the 3135 generation. 48-hour power reserve, bidirectional winding, stop seconds, 12 and 24-hour independent time zones. COSC chronometer. Rolex goes one better and promises the watch will run -2 + 2 seconds a day or better. That's the superlative chronometer timing standard. COSC certified, but then Rolex goes beyond timing that to the superlative standard as a fully cased up watch rather than the COSC bare movement. Shock resistant with a free sprung balance and a full balance bridge, 4 Hz beat rate, 31 joules. And of course, it features an overcoil hairspring in blue oxidized niobium zirconium, which is parachrome blue, and that is highly anti-magnetic. Parachrome blue is the Rolex brand name, but niobium zirconium is the material, and it is extremely anti-magnetic. Email tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Back with the Explorer II, Rolex Chromolite Blue proprietary lume, all 4 hands loomed.